never forget it, Aurelian, the microbiologist, said. George, the scientist, told me he leaned over Henrietta's bed and said, "Your cells will make you immortal." He told Henrietta her cells would help save the lives of countless people, and she smiled. She told him that she was glad her pain would come to some good for someone. One person remembers this. Many other people said didn't happen. All right, this brings me to a few other questions and comments from a feminist point of view. Does knowledge really bring power? Had the Laxes known about the fundamentals of cell biology, would their lives have been different, better, less angry, less fearful? At the conclusion of the book project, does the family know what Skloot tells us? That some lawyers say that the Lax children could, under common rule, in theory at least, withdraw HeLa cells from all research. But the last paragraph of the book suggests that all the anger has been worked out of the family, and that the Lax family would never imagine taking such a step. This step is one that, she says, caused every researcher I've mentioned it to shudder at the thought, right, that these cells would be withheld. Including somebody who said this was a Columbia University professor who estimated that he had used 800 billion HeLa cells to underwrite his research. What is the state of science education in the U.S. today, and how does it reflect, indeed shape, broader social categories of race, gender, and class difference, along with other differences in our society? And what education or public awareness campaigns do we need to fully understand that science is not an objective, impartial way of knowing the world? That science is, in fact, mixed with industry, mixed with different values. Next, why is the legal, moral, and ethical topic of consent so difficult in our society? Professor Banks has pointed out that there are some historical reasons why this is true, and we see this very clearly being played out now, even at the federal level, with opposition to healthcare reform that is riding on what is called taxpayers not wanting to pay for abortion services. So I hope you've kept up with the news and seen that this is in the news a lot right now, right? That indeed lawyers and legislators are debating now what the meaning of consent to sex is. Okay, how's this linked? Well, we don't want to pay for women who have not experienced so-called unforced rape. Okay, there's some definition going on here that has to do with what is consent. We can talk about that a bit later if you want. So scholars argue that even when laws establish rights, not everybody has access to those rights. All right, so we need to really think about that. Even if we pass certain laws that have to do with consent, there might not be access to them. Finally, how can tissue rights activists, and I hadn't heard of tissue rights activists before reading this book, so I like that. How can they work with other activists to talk about consent and bring the use of body parts to public attention? How can we ensure the very basic thing, that consent forms are truly understandable to everyone who must sign them? I don't mean just translating scientific legal language, I mean making them truly understandable. How can we ultimately reduce health disparities? So, in my conclusion, Skloot's book commendably opens up many questions. She suggests actions that readers can take. She herself has set up a scholarship fund that the New York Times recently ran a story that showed that the Lax family members are making use of that and getting medical care and getting education funding. So I too find this something that's really important for us to think about, not just as the book itself, and you can see I have kind of a critique of the book itself, but for what it means and the kinds of discussions that we can open up as a society.